Hi guys, hope we're doing alright. I've been crocheting for almost 2 years now, and whilst I've started a few blankets, I've never actually fully completed one. One of the reasons for this is because creating a blanket is just a big ask in general. And every blanket that I've tried to make, I've never been 100% bought into. So a blanket is definitely a project that I do tend to abandon, so I'm always quite hesitant to start a blanket. But I've just been to Yunior Yarns and they had some acrylic yarn that was on sale, so I decided to pick some up. I'm going to show you guys the yarn that I bought, and then maybe I can pick out some colours to start off this blanket. First off, I have this green yarn. I used to use this green a lot when I first started crocheting, but I haven't really found any yarn this colour that I've wanted to use. So I definitely had to pick this one up. I also picked up these two greens, which I also should mention, all of this yarn is split in between me and my boyfriend. This yarn isn't all for me. I prefer this kind of green because it's more close to kind of like a natural green, which I feel like is the greens that I gravitate towards. But this one's also really cute. Then I also got this burnt orange and red colour. I got this teal and navy blue. I also got this cream colour, which I'm pretty sure I want to base my blanket around this colour just because I think it would go really nicely with our apartment. And we also found this colour changing yarn, which I'm pretty sure my boyfriend will use because this is more his style. And then finally, I got this black yarn as well as this brown yarn. I managed to get all of that for under £30, which I definitely don't need more yarn, but when it's a bargain like that, I feel like I might as well stock up on things that I know that I'm going to use. I'm kind of gravitating towards mixing these three colours, but I'm not 1000% sure because I do think this brown could look pretty good, or even potentially the navy could look cute. I don't know, but I know that I'm gonna start off my blanket with this color, so I do actually have a little bit of time to experiment and think what I want to do. Whilst walking home, I had a few ideas as to what I want this blanket to look like. I don't like doing granny squares just because I don't like sewing things together, and I feel like the amount of ends you have to do and color changes just really isn't my vibe. But obviously that's not really an issue when it comes to a big granny square. So what I think I want to do is alternate between using a double crochet granny square, just kind of normal rows of double crochet, and then mix that in with mesh stitches, but keeping kind of the double crochets in one color and the mesh stitches in another. Then I'm thinking about potentially using kind of a third color to break up those kind of blocks. But now what I'm going to do is start building up the granny square so I kind of have an idea as to where I'm going. Then once I know what I'm doing, I will update you guys with my progress. So it has been some time. So much time, in fact, that the sofa is now in a different place in the lounge. Actually, I say that, we have moved around the whole lounge. We are now at the end of October, but yeah, I just kind of stopped working on the blanket. Obviously, as you can probably imagine, building that granny square at the start wasn't too bad, but once you get to the longer rows, it's just such a task, especially just doing double crochets, not in a granny stitch. It's just kind of long to do each row, so I have been procrastinating it, but I have finally grown it to the point that I don't think I'm going to add any more rows, but obviously I do want the blanket to be bigger. I'm going to insert a clip of what the granny square looks like at the moment. What is my plan? I am currently making granny squares because I have decided that I don't want this blanket to end up being a square. I do want it to be a rectangle, so I do want to do 2 lines of granny squares each side, and then after that I'll probably do some form of border, but I haven't really got that far yet in my planning of it all. But what I did was I counted the amount of mesh boxes kind of each side of the square, because obviously I kind of need to do a granny square that is divisible by that number. And there was a total of 78 squares. I decided that I'm going to split 78 into 3 granny squares that are 26, which would be a total of 13 rows. So I am stuck between 2 ideas as to what I want to do. Actually, no, I'm stuck between 3. The main ideas that I'm working with is to either keep all 6 of them the same, or to do 4 the same and 2 the same, and do the 4 in each corner and then have the 2 in the middle. Or if I wanted to go crazy, I could do a bunch of different random ones. I think because the big one in the middle, it would just kind of look strange, so I'm not really leaning towards that at the moment. I think I'm just going to try and find a simple granny square that works first, and I'll go from there. But as I say, it needs to have a total of 13 rows, so by the time I've finished it, each side has 26 mesh boxes. This is kind of the one downfall, I suppose, to freehanding patterns, is you do need to consider a lot of maths. Anyway, you guys, I am gonna leave you and figure out these granny squares, and we will come up with a plan. I have finally added the 6 granny squares that I made earlier, and I also spent some time sewing in ends, because with a project like this that has a lot of ends, I don't like to weave in ends as I go, because I definitely think that I like to sew in my ends once that section is fully completed. But when it comes to like the center of these granny squares, I just sewed in as many ends as I can, just because I know with a big project like this, the more ends that I leave to do at the end determines whether I will actually be bothered to sew in ends or not, so I thought I would just get a lot of them out the way. To join these granny squares, I did use kind of like a surface crochet slip stitch. What I did is I went through the back loop of both of the panels that I was trying to put together. That's created a really nice seam actually. This is the blanket. I really like the way that it's turned out. I was stuck in between doing all 6 of them the same or doing completely random ones, but I definitely think doing this kind of like 2 of the busier granny squares with the 4 more plain ones, it definitely adds to the vibe, and I really like how it looks. Honestly, I feel like I'm quite guilty of being quite underexcited about my crochet, but because I've never made a blanket before, I'm really excited for this to be done. I also definitely think it has to do with just the sheer amount of hours that I've put into this. Because I used a chunkier yarn and a 4.5mm hook, my brain didn't really register actually how much work this would be. I am planning to add to this blanket by working in the round around this whole blanket, and I don't even want to think about how long one round just by itself would take me to do. But as for like actually my plans for the next step, I don't know whether I want to add just kind of like a rectangular version of what I've got going on already, or I did have this idea to do 4 more granny squares for each corner and then do something to kind of like fill in the sections that I haven't done anything for. I am not 100% sure. I am gonna go away and just have a little think about what I want to do, and then I will keep you guys updated. The one thing that I do need to keep in mind though is obviously I have done absolutely no blocking when it comes to this blanket, so realistically I probably don't need to add too much more, because I want this blanket to look good on our bed, but I don't need it to be huge. I think I'm gonna really love this, but I do definitely need kind of a solid plan as to what to do next, because I don't know whether you guys get this, but when I've got more than just a few options to pick, I feel like the stress of picking the right one is a lot more. I don't know, I'm blabbering on. I will update you guys in a bit. I have finally finished the blanket. That was a lot of work. I ended up just kind of doing a border around the blanket, and I kept with the same pattern that I've been doing the whole time. The only thing is, for the last row, I ended up doing a row of single crochets in that cream just because I think it finished it off quite nicely. Do I want to make a blanket again? Maybe, but definitely not for a long time. I would say this definitely isn't the most complex thing I've ever made, but probably the thing that I've put the most time into. But whilst I am so excited to use it, and I'm already thinking about whether I want to get new bed sheets to kind of match it, it's not like I've just had a magic epiphany that I want to start making a bunch of blankets now. Especially seeing as this is quite a big blanket, but it's not like a double bed size, like full length blanket, and I can only imagine how much like effort that would take. But anyway, now everything is blocked and I've finally sewn in all the ends. I'm going to show you guys what the blanket looks like. It is pretty heavy. It's maybe not as heavy as I expected it to be. Let me unfold everything just to show you guys what this looks like. So this is it in its full glory. I did steam block this a little bit, but I'm not sure whether I will have another go at it. I couldn't be bothered to spend an awful lot of time blocking this just because of the marathon finish I've had to complete this. I do personally prefer the way that it looks lengthwise. It's definitely kind of like retro vibes. The one thing that I will say is obviously because I've used a mesh stitch, it's not going to be the most warm blanket, but that's not a problem for me. And anyways, like when it comes to granny square stitches in general, those do have holes in it. Obviously these holes are bigger, so there is going to be more ventilation, but because it's acrylic, I mean, I'm not too worried. I will definitely still get my use out of it. I will say I do kind of regret doing the surface crochet join. You can probably see that it's left this seam, which is quite apparent, but the only problem is because I did an extra row of mesh here, this seam finishes kind of one row early. So what I might do in the future is I might get the cream yarn and do a surface crochet kind of around the second to last row of the mesh stitch, just to kind of tie everything together a little bit more. I'm just really picky when it comes to these kind of details, so it is going to bother me till I do it. But as I say, I just kind of wanted to get it done as soon as possible. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think of the blanket. By no means is it the most innovative thing that I've done, but I do think that this was a really cute idea to do for a blanket. I could even imagine doing this, but just not doing the mesh stitch, but still keeping kind of that same color pattern. I mean, we have, wait, it's underneath it. We have this blanket that my boyfriend made ages ago when he was first learning how to crochet, and this is out of granny stitch. So it is nice to have a blanket made with a different stitch. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I post new videos every week. And go ahead and check out my social media. I'm currently kind of working on a few patterns, so definitely keep your eyes out for that. I sell my patterns on Ravelry and Etsy, so go ahead and check those out as well if you're interested. Apart from that, I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.